everybody, we're live here. Aiden here from Brink Events from the headquarters here in the office by myself, socially isolating and social distancing, as I hope you all are too. I hope you're all safe and well out there during these crazy times. This is our 5th edition of Focal Points. As you know, Focal Points is the interview series where we interview top event designers and event professionals from around the world to see what makes them tick. So today I'm really happy. We've got Kaufman here from the Fifth Element Group in Toronto. Aaron, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so happy you could make the time during this crazy pandemic we've got going on in the world. And you know what? We're not going to talk too much about that because it's overwhelming. It's got a lot of our industry down. But quickly, I just want you to kind of share a few thoughts on either what's coming up for you guys in terms of the pandemic or what you want to get out to the world in the event industry in terms of this bit. And then we're going to move on because we want to talk about positive stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think that as a firm and as a company, what we do best is we create live experiences. And so, our focus is going to be continue to do that. I think that there's a lot of people who are talking about pivoting to digital. And while I completely understand that, I think people are doing it with the follow-up question of, wait a minute, how should I have charged for that? And so from a business perspective, to me, that's not necessarily the best decision. I think, ultimately the other challenge is that we can't be experts in everything every day. And so what I do best is creatively with my team, come up with concepts that are, world renowned for being, a little bit off the wall and a little bit scary. And I think that, what we're doing right now is we're spending a lot of our time coming up with new strategies and new ideas and working with clients on actually elevating their programs for when they can happen so that they can, kind of convince some people to show up. And so that's really the strategy right now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And like we know, we're both social event producers and we want to bring people together. And this virus has kind of done the exact opposite in terms of isolating people and pulling people apart. So, just like yourself, I look forward to the day where we can get together and share a cocktail and dance and listen to live music and just be in person. I don't think that can be replicated by a hybrid, virtual event, which, I think a lot of people are pivoting to, but I think you and I are in the same boat in the sense that we're kind of pushing back because I don't think you can substitute that with being in person with a group.
No, and you know what? I think you can educate virtually for sure. I think you can deliver AGMs and I think you can, there are certain things that you certainly can do, but the other thing is just the measurement in general, right? Like if I'm an at-home employee and the AGM is happening and someone's expecting me to listen to it, I can certainly turn it on and then, go sit on my couch and, eat some potato chips and do whatever else, right? And watch an old rerun of the Jays in the World Series. So I think, one of the things that's happening is that companies understand that there are a number of suppliers you can pivot to, but they don't know why they're pivoting. They don't know how they're pivoting, and they don't know what's going on with all of that. And so I think messaging is so important right now. I think, being able to still engage people one-on-one, two-on-one, 10-on-1, whatever it is. I think that's the thing that's really missing from the whole virtual transition is it's not so much you can't meet people in person because, I feel like we're kind of in person right now, hopefully, millions and millions of people are watching us, but at the end of the day,
our bandwidth is clogging up.
But I think, I feel like we're in person. I think the challenge that live event companies are facing in the pivot is engagement and who's measuring that and how are they measuring that? And that's really an important part to what Fifth Element Group does as a company when we're working with clients. And that's, certainly some of the vocabulary we're using in trying to strategize with them for the rest of the year and into 2021.
Well, and I think an important part too, just I'll hopefully close it up with this is, what, we've been doing this for a long time. I'm almost 9 years in. I don't know how many years would you say?
Oh God, like 16 years of Fifth Element.
There you go. So like this has only been going on for a month, if that, like on a large scale. So people are talking about pivoting their entire company and their business. We've been doing this 9 years, 16 years. Are we going to let a few weeks or a month dictate how we're going to pivot our businesses? Like, no. We gotta let this play out a little bit longer. And if there is something longer term, maybe we look at it. But I think there's no point in making rash decisions at this point. So
Well, I get it. I think, again, sometimes in our industry, we end up with people who are very creative, but not very business savvy. There's a lot of very short-term thinking going on. There's a lot of, I got to save my ass today. And I get it. And a lot of people, I get a lot of blowback from solopreneurs right now when I'm delivering my message, because they're going, well, it's not just companies that are going to move the ball forward. And, my best example is if I'm a solopreneur and I work from home and I have a home office and, great. And I have no issue with that. Right. But you can't lower the bar now.
Yeah.
Just to find a way to pay your rent and stuff, which I completely understand why people would do. Yeah. But you can't do it because as an industry, once everything comes back, we're not just going to be able to raise it again. And so I think, again, we need to be talking about what companies look like, what businesses look like, but more importantly, what the engagement and strategy piece looks like and how are we measuring what we're doing. Yeah. It's okay to pivot, a month in, 2 months in, 3 months, whatever it is. I don't have an issue with the pivot itself. I have an issue with the kind of how we're measuring the pivot. And then what's going to happen later when someone decides, oh, no, we're back to being live event experts.
Yeah. Right? You're blurring the message. You're skewing it. So I think that your customers and partners are going to wonder where you're going with everything, and you're not staying in line with your vision. So yeah, I completely agree with that. So, maybe tell everybody a little bit about your background and what you were doing before events and what got you into events. I mean, I've met you at conferences and ILEA events over the years, but I'm not even completely aware of, how you got into this. So I'm very curious.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was younger, in my young man days, I suppose.
Many moons ago.
Yes, many moons ago. I actually started in live events as a club MC. So I'm going to date myself tremendously now, but back in the mid to late 90s, I actually was traveling around as a club MC, specifically working around hip hop. And it was weird because, they'd be like, oh, who's this little, white guy running around and doing all these things. And, actually when I'd be in, and back then the clubs were big. Right now it's like more bars and lounges and stuff. But back then it was, the club life was you go out every Friday, Saturday night, and you wait in line for an hour and, you get in and party till 3 a.m. and whatever else. And so, people would see me walking around with the mic and they would be like, hey, you're obviously going to go give that to the MC. Can you ask him something for me? And I'd be like, sure, even though it was me. And I got a reputation for being able to, jump on bars and do kind of crazy things. And eventually, that's a hard life to live. Yeah. And so eventually I transitioned that part-time, at least, to working on a traveling video dance party company. So I was emceeing those shows, and they were traveling around, working mostly in high schools, on kind of Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, Friday nights, and then I do the club Saturday night. And so that was busy, but that show actually, what catapulted me to this was back then the owner of that company really didn't know what he was doing so much either. And so he ended up promising shows to schools and then not being able to actually carry them out because he wasn't charging enough. Schools didn't have the money to pay for the type of show they were doing. And so within a few month period, I raised an exceptional amount of money just learning marketing on my own. And I leveraged my network, and I started bringing in big sponsors, and eventually the company started to become successful. I actually moved to Vancouver and lived in Vancouver for a number of months. So I used to run the Commodore for a little while, and then I did I know it's not there anymore, but I worked at a club called Kits on Broadway, which for anyone that was, in college back then, that was kind of a big deal in, 2000, 2001. I did that until, inevitably, as happens in this industry, the guy who I moved there to open, that business for there, eventually screwed me, and I came home and started this company because my wife, who I met back then, didn't want me really working in clubs anymore. So
there you go. You know what's really funny about that? That's kind of how I got into events. And I'll just give you a quick background on that is 2010, I started doing electronic music promotion. So this was just before electronic music really hit mainstream with, you know, your Dead Mouse and your Cascade and Avicii and all that.
Yep.
It was just kind of coming in, and I've always been an electronic music fan. So I was working with a company out of Vancouver to bring big shows to Victoria. So I did bring, and within a couple of years, 2010 to 12, I had brought like Avicii to Victoria, you know, Benny Benassi, Skrillex, Morgan Page, like pretty much all the big names in electronic music to Victoria, which at this point seems ridiculous and we wouldn't be able to afford them. But back then it was just on the cusp of getting big, and we brought all the big shows to Victoria. But like yourself, I mean, you know, I'm starting to get into my late 20s at this point. I don't want to be in nightclubs. You know, I'm marketing to younger kids, and I thought, you know, I like this event world. I like the social. I like all this stuff. But, and then you know, to make a long story short, I was building somebody else's equity at the same time too. So I had to figure out a way of doing my own. So that's when I started to throw these parties for young professionals in, you know, venues around the city, like museums and art galleries and on yachts and stuff like that. And then over time, my model transitioned from me throwing parties as the producer to people hiring us to do events, which now we've got a fully client-based model. We're not the producer anymore. So it took time, but I could totally relate to that, you know, club, you know, party, doing the thing, big shows, excitement and all that. But, you know, you can't be in that forever.
No, you know what? It's not an easy life to live, and I traveled, you know, all over the place working. And you know, New Year's Eve of 2000, I was in front of almost 6,000 people, and it was, you know, it got really big. And I traveled a little bit with Maestro back in the day and stuff.
Oh, cool.
So I had some pretty cool opportunities, and I think you know, you gotta learn. You know, one of the things that I attribute, you know, that time to is just learning the industry. And I think people don't take enough time to do that right now. And so, you know, my backstory really, you know, it just helps me remember often, you know, kind of, you can't just, you know, nowadays you can kind of just start a business, right? Like you leave a job on a Friday and on Monday, as long as you have a cell phone and, you know, someone can you know, create a logo for you, you have a company. But back then it didn't work that way. And so you have to put in the time, and you have to learn, and you have to understand. And you know, I'm better for it. And probably, you know, you would say the same thing, I'm guessing.
Yeah. And I mean, like you say, anybody can click, you know, create Facebook page and they've got a business up and running. They got a cell phone, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing. I mean, we're in an industry where I think you'd probably agree that most of your business comes through word of mouth, and your reputation and your portfolio and your track record, your clientele, and all that validation over the years. So as much as, you know, I'm worried about somebody in Victoria starting up a social event company and clicking create page on Facebook, I'm not really, because, you know, have they built a portfolio? Is there that level of trust? Like with what we do on the level we do, you can't screw this stuff up. We've got, you know, the clients just, you don't get a redo with live events. You know, you don't get to have a dress rehearsal. It's live theater. So, you know, with our charity and private individuals and companies, I mean, you got to bang it out of the house every night, every single night. You're only as good as your last event, whatever phrase you want to use. It's completely true. So I think, you know what, anybody can start a company, but it's going to take years of pedigree and portfolio building to really get to a point where I think that, you know, you can feel like you have a solid, stable company moving forward, which I would say for me, it took at least about 4 years to get to.
Yeah, for me, it's taken 16, and I don't even know that I'm thrilled with where we're at all the time anyways. So, you know, complacency is, you know, evil. And I think
it is. You know, and people are always expecting us to raise the bar, which I find very exciting, but also somewhat stressful too. I think in this industry, there's always a level of stress. It has to be manageable, but it's always going to be there. And I think it's what's exciting, but it's also what's difficult as well. And you know what, it's like drugs, you know, you have your ups,
for sure,
everything in between.
For sure.
So
I mean, I'm lucky because, you know, we do our creative internally, right? And so oftentimes, you know, when we get a client, and sometimes, you know, I'll go out and my creative director, her name is Tanya, and she's amazing. And so sometimes I'll go out and we'll sit in a brainstorm, and I'll go, you know what, we could do this, and I think the client would be very happy. And it's something that's not really, you know, mind-blowing or anything, but I think it just makes sense sometimes. And she'll look at me like dead in the face, and she'll be like, are you fucked? Like, this is an opportunity to like really, like, you know, do something crazy. And I mean, we, you know, we take the opportunity 3, 4, 5, 6 times a year to you know, just change people's concept of what,
Yeah.
what creativity is.
Yeah.
And then also, what can be done. And we
Mm-hmm.
will, man, have we done some things that I've watched and been like, like I'm sweating
Yeah.
while it's happening. But
Yeah.
you know what? Like that is what makes
Yeah.
creative companies tick. And I've
Yeah.
seen ad campaigns and marketing campaigns and, things PR that have been, some of the wildest shit you've ever seen and some of the most successful things. And I think in events, same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I know for sure. I love watching people walk into a room and you can just read their lips. They're going, wow.
Yeah.
Like they're just I mean, that is the thing. And I've actually done that. I've actually stood at the door of some of our events and looked at people's reactions as they walked in, and I've seen the words like, wow, or just this bewilderment. And that's what makes it all worthwhile.
Absolutely.
That's that drug. That's that climax there where you're going, okay, this was a lot of work. It was a lot of stress. Why the hell am I in this industry? You watch that and you go, oh, now I remember why I'm here. Right?
That's it. And listen, it's okay. Like it's okay to, so many people are so concerned, and it's going to be worse going forward, I think, but they're so concerned about, okay, we're going to pitch something, we're going to fail. Right. So it's safe. And I'm saying, fuck it, fail.
Yeah.
Fail a lot and fail hard. Just make sure your end product is perfect.
Yeah.
Go to a client and go, we want the opportunity to develop this as your live event. If you like this concept, we will put in every effort. And if we can't do it, or if it's not an option because of the venue, because of logistics, whatever else, then give us the opportunity to fail and come back to you with plan B. Right? And too many companies in our industry are so scared about the idea that, oh, what if the client doesn't like it the first time? Maybe someone will come in and undercut me or whatever. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
We are, we are going for it all the time. And my team, not just me, but my team has bought into it. And, my strategy has been and will be to continue to be creatively fearless. Going forward.
And the best way I can compare that is to have an opinion, have a stance. There's so many people and companies that are just kind of in that floating, like they don't want to make anybody upset and they never want to, cause an argument. Like I'm the guy in the room usually that's the devil's advocate in a lot of meetings because nobody else wants to really, look at things differently or say otherwise because they don't want to disrupt or feel like they're arguing with people. But if it's constructive, I think it's actually worse to hold back from providing an opinion if you think there could be a better income by you bringing that up. And I think a lot of people hold back because they find it as being a conflict or whatnot. You got to have a stance. You got to have an opinion. And what you're saying with presenting a crazy idea to a client, they might love it. They might hate it. But at least you're putting something in front of them that has a stance and opinion rather than just kind of some wishy-washy thing that you're jockeying for position until you kind of are let them setting the stage for a piece of art or an event that is literally more their creation than yours, even though you're the expert.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And I think, we get paid for being the expert. So we really need to make sure that we're capitalizing on that.
And here's the thing, and here's a great example too. I don't ever want to go to a consultant or somebody that I'm looking for to hire to do work and them go, I think this is how you should do it. Or maybe I want to hear them go, okay, here's how you do it. I'm going to lay this out. I'm confident. This is the best plan. I'm going to be like, okay, I like this guy. If somebody comes to me and says they're an expert in an area and they go, I think this is how you do. I'm not going to trust them. I'm going to be worried. I'm going to be second guessing everything. And that's what you don't want people.
Imagine you went to a doctor and you're like, okay, I think I need my appendix out. So here's how I suggest you do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Right. I mean, how do you suggest I do that? Okay, well, just cut right here. I don't really know what I would say, but I think it's the same thing, right?
That's a whole nother ball game though with doctors and Google these days. I mean, I'd hate to be a doctor in a lot of cases because people are basically self-diagnosing, but
absolutely.
Yeah. So just moving along a little bit here. So, let's talk about what you love about the industry in particular. Like, is there something in particular that you would say, this is my favorite part of the industry, or here's why I like this industry so much? I mean, we've talked about creating these moments, but is there something in particular outside of that or what you love about this industry?
So the thing that I've said to people a lot, which, I get a lot of head nods, is ultimately for me, right? I'm a guy who really likes to create impact, right? It's why I generally am on a lot of the change makers lists, which I also refer to as the shit disturbers lists in the industry. I don't mind opening my mouth. I don't mind saying what I'm thinking. And I'm a big boy enough to understand that there's going to be reaction, both positive and negative, to the things that I do, right? I am very much prescribed to the idea that, you know, being in my role in this industry gives me some great opportunities to speak out. And so the thing that I tell people all the time is what I love about our industry, or what I love about the job I do, because it's not really industry related, but the job that I do in particular, I love that I have an opportunity to, I'll not make this super curse related, but I love that I have the opportunity to mess with people's emotions on a daily basis. Every time myself and Fifth Element and the team shows up on a job site, I can make people feel a certain way about a certain thing. I can make people feel enamored with a new car by launching it in the right way. I can make people feel scared by doing something else. I can make them happy. I can make them sad. I can fuck with people so much, right? With content, with video, with speakers, you know, I can make people laugh and cry in a matter of 30 seconds, right? And most industries, you can't do that.
No.
Right? And so I think that's the one thing in our industry that so many people take for granted is understanding, you know, the emotional metric behind the work that we're doing. But that is not lost on me. You know, you're talking about standing at the door and you know, watching people say, wow. But for me, I want to take that even a step further. I want to make them say, wow. And then I want to do something to fuck with them and make them go, holy shit, that just happened. Right? And if I get people who, so I love standing when doors open or when we do a big reveal or something, but I also love standing at the doors when people leave. And I want them to go, I cannot wait to see what they do next year. Because that is really fucking with people. And for the next year, they're going to sit there and go, remember that night, how that happened? And I'll give you a great example. We did an event not long ago at the Fairmont Royal York, and it was for CMEE, like that week or whatever else. And we decided before that we were just going to do something that people were just going to be, you know, blown away by. And so we decided that we were going to custom build tables and essentially drop them from the ceiling during a reveal. And so you can, you know, for anyone who's watching, you can find that on our Instagram. It's Fifth Element GRP. But basically, so we had, you know, pre-function, and we actually had hors d'oeuvres going and being served with drones and, you know, really cool stuff. So it was all about coming from the ceiling things. We moved a drape out of the way, and what we had done was we had set chairs in place, had candles and florals and everything, and the tables were in the ceiling, and we had them fall down from the ceiling while people were watching.
Wow.
And the look on people's faces, first of all, like we had them all like giddy from the pre-function, and we had fun drinks and drone stuff. And we changed the mood in the room right away just by turning off the lights, opening the drape. We had a laser show with tables, just like super drama. Like if you're an old wrestling fan, if you remember how the Undertaker used to come out during WrestleManias and stuff like that.
That big bell. Ding.
We use that kind of music and stuff. And so I draw on a lot of my old memories that for me, you know, had a ton of emotion. I was scared and excited and, you know, your adrenaline's pumping. And so that's kind of what I play off of. That's what I love.
That's crazy.
And we did it. And eventually the tables came down to where the chairs were already set. And the candles were already lit and in the ceiling. And basically everyone just sat down at these swinging tables and ate their dinner.
That is crazy.
But for me, the reason why I say that is because that's really like where I just go from like, I'm thinking at emotion from every level. What is the music doing? Lighting doing? Can I make you feel wow and then holy shit? And then, you know, how do I kind of transition all of those things? And then to kind of finalize, because for me, this is the most important part of any design is, did I get the intended result, or what does it result in? So how do I measure it now? Right. And the measurement for me on the job like that is really just people are saying, what are they going to do next year? And we've already had phone calls going, you know, are you doing this next year? What are you going to do? For me, that's cool. So
no, like just constantly like thinking of ideas, and your litmus test is, are you saying to yourself, well, that's freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Perfect. Let's put it in. But at the same time, also, like you're saying, you don't want to just do crazy for the sake of crazy. You want to make sure it's got an intended goal and it fits with the client and it fits with the event. If you're just going to do crazy random shit forever, it has to fit with the actual event, and it has to make sense in terms of the process. Otherwise, it feels like it's just kind of pushed into there in a.
But I think you also have to use, the team of people that I have around me is so very good that, what I recognize is that, I can do an event for 50 people, right? Or I can have my boardroom full of all of my staff, and every person will react differently to the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I sit at a table with a group of people in my office, and Tanya sits and says, this is my idea. If one of us go, then it's probably not enough. Now, usually we're all going, I don't know how the fuck you're going to do this.
Yeah. Right? We'll figure out the logistics later. Yeah.
Because she's willing to really push, and the rest of my team is too. But 50 people all seeing the same thing will all react differently. Yeah. So you're not going to get the intended result from everybody, right? But you better try. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because when you said that tables dropping from the ceiling, immediately me from an event perspective goes, how the frick did they actually do that with motors and this and that? Yep. I mean, let's not get into that because that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, I love the idea, but I'm like, how the hell? Not even going to go there at this point. So here's a question for you though. With events, especially live events, and what we do, there's live music, there's food, there's all this. So, you can say that, our events appeal to the five senses. Is that where the Fifth Element Group name comes in? Because I've never really asked you about, where's the name come from? Is it the five senses or something else?
No. So, we definitely considered the senses. We considered, all sorts of things. Initially, the company when I started it, was called Fifth Element Events. And it was started, so again, here I go, I'm going to date myself.
Date yourself, yeah.
So we started it and it was spelled the number 5TH.
Okay.
Right. So Fifth Element Events. And initially when we started it, it was, well, how do I get it so that I'm listed at the top of the yellow pages and all of the directories?
Got it.
Because nobody searched by name back then, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to go on, 2003. So we really, initially I wanted to be at all the directories.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to be like first something or in seconds dumb, and I don't want to be third, fourth.
Yeah.
So Fifth Element just kind of stuck out to me, and I went cool. And then about 5-6 years ago, again, on the advice of my wife, who's always looking out for me, she kind of said, all right, well, your company name's super childish, so get your shit together.
Transition it. Yeah. I think with the lettering of Fifth and group as opposed to events, it really almost takes it to another level and makes it feel more like an agency. And I don't want to say more grown up or professional, because that might take away from what you've done, but I think that's what you're trying to say anyways, and around.
Absolutely. Yep.
So no, that's great. I just wanted to kind of get that out. So, we talked a little bit about what you like, creating these crazy moments, out of the box thinking, this roller coaster of emotion for people. But let's be honest here too. The industry definitely has downsides and things that you don't like and times that aren't going to be so good. So, we only get to really showcase the tip of the iceberg to people with our events. There's a lot of stuff that's not so great. So maybe tell me a little bit about what you don't like about the industry, maybe a little bit about the darker side, or everybody that thinks that it's all fun and games and champagne all the time. Let's give them a little bit of light in terms of what else goes on in the industry.
So listen, you're in an industry right now, as am I, that is completely unregulated, has no barriers to entry, is run by associations which, require fees clearly, and are not setting standards and guidelines.
It's like the wild west.
It's the Wild West. And I think the most important thing that I've talked to people about recently is the idea that, and I hate to say it, because the situation we find ourselves in right now is awful, But if it wasn't this, it was going to be something else, and our industry needed a course correction. And what we need to understand is that everyone who's going, oh, I canceled, and this happened and this happened. Well, that's because you weren't getting paid for time.
Yeah.
Right. And that's because, various things. And so instead of trying to, potentially set records for Global Meeting Day and stuff like that, why aren't we talking about how does the industry want to handle RFPs going forward? And why aren't we getting, 30 of the top corporate planners, meaning people who work for corporations, and 30 of the top industry people, and I put myself in that room and a bunch of other people and say, let's talk about this, right? What, from a corporation standpoint, do you like about RFPs? And they're going to say, well, we get an opportunity to look at various pricing models and whatever else, right? And my response would be, well, what if the entire industry worked under a very similar pricing model? Would you stop RFPs? Right?
Interesting, yeah.
Why isn't our industry talking to corporations about agency of record deals? All those types of things. And so what I hate about this industry is that there is really, it's an industry and not a business. And you can't have creatives running businesses. What we really need is the opportunity for 4 or 5 or 6 people who aren't necessarily real entrepreneurs to get together and go, who's going to run this company? We're going to build something that's going to be big, right? And when I say big, anyone who's watching, go look up Vakdams in Germany. Okay. Look up George P. Johnson. Look up those companies, because how many wealthy North American people are owning event companies right now? Because why else am I in business? Like, I love what I do. I love the people I do it with, but I want them to be wealthy. Right. And when I say wealthy, we're not going to be Jeff Bezos in this business.
No, never.
But by wealthy, I mean being independently stable, to be able to, weather storms like this. Right? Because it's not just our industry. Retail's gone through it. Everyone's gone through it. It just happens right now for us. And so really, that's the thing that I hate most. I don't understand for the life of me why we can't figure out that it's not just about parties. Because we'll never get paid what we're worth. Never. And I can't do it myself, and neither can you, and neither can, some company in LA or whatever else. This is going to take an effort. And now's the time, because the corporate planners aren't doing shit right now.
We've got the time.
Listen, right? They can listen.
Nobody can argue that.
We need to call the banks. We need to call the big companies. We need to call the airlines. We need to call everybody and get everyone in on a round table and go, here's how we're going to do this. And hopefully, when the industry picks back up again, a number of the companies who are lowering the bar won't be around anymore. But hopefully all that talent will come to work for companies who are still around.
No, I completely agree. It's not really treated like a business. It is the wild west, and there's people charging whatever and pitching however and undercutting and doing this and that, and it is a little bit crazy because you know what, we're business owners. We're trying to be as professional and run it like a business as we can. Sure, there's a creative component that you need to get out of the box, and there is no rules around guidelines around the creative side, but from the business side, there should be a better structure and framework around that. So,
it's interesting to me that I work with a number of advertising agencies, and they sign clients to contracts, and then they call me in, right, to kind of produce their live experiences. And if you don't think for a second that advertising agency is charging for my time, even though I'm not charging them for my time because I can't, because our industry won't allow it. That's insane. Now, we
100%.
bill transparently, right? So we bill a management fee. So I guess in theory, I'm charging them somewhat for my time, but they are, ad agencies, they went through this process already. And they came out the other side. And now what do? They put 5 people in a room with a client who's signed to an agency of record contract. And they charge $200 an hour for all 5 people. And they call as many meetings as they can because it's all billable hours. And that's how ad agencies and marketing companies make money.
That's
but
true.
For us, we're like, oh, no problem. Like, I'm happy to do that because, everyone's so worried the client's going to leave if you try to charge them properly.
Okay, I've got some 3 more rapid fire questions, but before I jump to that, I want to just stick with this topic for 1 second, ask you this. I know in Europe sometimes they actually, when a company puts out an RFP, they actually pay companies for their time to submit.
Yep.
So let's say it's 3 or 4 companies. Do you like that model?
I've been a part of that model a number of times. I don't mind people buying creative.
Yeah.
And, you know, an RFP, just point of reference, RFP is request for proposal.
Yeah.
It's not, I have a gun in your mouth, you better do this.
Yeah.
And so
That's
people
true.
need to remember that if they don't like the RFP, they're not required to respond to it.
That's
and
true.
so for me, when I get an RFP request from a company like BMW in Germany, and they say, here's the budget on it, I still get a choice of whether or not I actually want to give them my creative, even if they might not hire me to actually produce it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a different mindset from different parts of the world too. I think Europe's different from North America, is going to be different from Asia and everything, even culturally. So a couple questions here. So let's get outside of work here for a sec. So when you're not trying to change the industry with crazy out of the box ideas or creating a structure around the business side, what do you do for fun? What are your pastimes, hobbies? What do you do?
I love music. I always have. I'm a big hip hop fan still, although I have to be honest, some of the newer hip hop I'm not quite as excited about.
Yeah, I agree.
In your favorite genre of music though, if it's still your favorite, I've been listening to a lot of Alice in Wonderland, which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And she's super cool. So music is really a big part of my life. Sports has always been a big part of my life. So clearly I'm going through a lot of withdrawal right now. You know,
well, you're watching reruns of the Jays winning the World Series, so
yeah. You know what? I was there when they won the World Series, so I can't. I can't really watch it because I was in the house, and it just never invokes the same emotion for me.
Yeah.
I also, you know, I have 3 lovely children. I have twin 6-year-old boys, and so you know, spending a lot of time with them, and a 9-year-old daughter, and you know, she's teaching me some things these days, which is really cool. And you know, I'm also I'm learning a little bit more about, you know, enjoying spending time with, you know, clearly spending time with my family and my wife, and you know, I think other than that, you know, I really enjoyed driving, and so up until last summer, I had a 1970 Mustang convertible, which I had completely restored, and it was like matte black and beautiful, and I sold it at the end of last summer. But I bought myself a nice big pickup truck, which really is something that, you know, I've enjoyed. And so, you know, I'll go out for a drive and kind of just hang out and listen to some music. And, you know, I think that's kind of been something that's really been kind of nice for me as well.
It's funny you say, you know, spending more time with family, getting to know, I think everybody is these days, but not even by choice, by default, you know, we're having to isolate and everything. So people are definitely, you know, getting to connect with their family on a level that I don't think they have before, which I think is a good thing.
Sure. And I mean, lastly, you know, I love to exercise my brain.
Yeah.
And so really, like, you know, I don't know if you noticed, but a couple of times while we're talking, I'll kind of look down and I'm jotting notes about things that I'm thinking. I have really bad ADHD, which I don't medicate. And so, you know, I get to a point sometimes where I just go like, my brain is just doing something really cool right now. And so I've actually spent, you know, some time in my office by myself when I can. And I've just been really coming up with like things that I'm thinking. Which is so wild to me because I don't usually take notes. I'm usually like all over the place. But I've had the time and the quiet to be able to just jot some notes. And I look at things and I like have hashtags that I'm thinking about for campaigns and, you know, ideas I'm reading about, you know, and I'm talking to, you know, various people about things. And I think that for me, that's been the wildest thing, just to be able to ideate for myself and not for other people.
And now's the time to do that, you know, and it's hard to work on client stuff. Let's stay inspired with this design. And just similar to what you're saying, one thing I do is when I see event photos or I get an idea, or like, let's say I get an idea for a ceiling treatment or a dance floor or a bar or an entrance, I've got sort of this running spreadsheet that I have on Google Drive that I'll jot that into. And I'll go, I know I want to do that idea sometime in the future. It has to be the right event, the right circumstances, the right budget, the right client. And so I've kind of put it in this database. And then when I have a client that wants some new ideas or creative inspiration, I'll go, okay, I'll revisit that. And I'll go, oh man, got to do that ceiling treatment, or got to do that bar on the entrance. That one's going to work perfect for this. So it's kind of like, because if you just kind of think of ideas and then they're just floating, then when the client comes, you're like, oh, I have all those ideas, but I can't remember what they are. So, I think everybody's got their own process around that, but that's kind of what I do. So, so what's a big upcoming event? I know upcoming is kind of a vague term at this point, but like, what's an event you've got coming up at some point in the future, or that you guys do every year that you're just so excited about, that you're just like super pumped about, and you get to be super creative?
Yeah. I wish I had a good answer on that.
Yeah,
there
it's a tricky
are,
one right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the clients that I love to work with, as an example, is Baycrest Hospital. I have a wonderful relationship with them, and they do this Pro-Am draft every year. And so actually, before talking with you, I was ideating with them and working on some new strategies that I'm kind of excited about. That's an event I love because it kind of ties in everything. I love fundraising for organizations. I clearly love hockey. And I love events. And so I think that's one of those that for me, it tugs at the heartstrings a little bit, just because I know that there's a lot to do. I know they need the money. And so, doing big galas, I'm always excited for them. Doing big AV installs, I love, but for me right now, what some of the things I'm missing that I'm most excited for is the impact of what we so that's one that kind of stands out for me right now. That's, I want to be able to go into an event or a venue or work with a client and, have them call me the next day and go, hey, we did $3 million yesterday. And, while it wasn't, necessarily the event as a whole, and I understand that, I just love to feel like, at least for a minute, that we had some small piece of that. Doing that. Yeah. And I think that's the part for me that's really missing right now with any organization, but charities especially, just not being able to move an agenda forward or raise money or kind of advance the world. I feel like event people are here to advance the world faster, because we can create a situation where people feel in real time and then leave and act. Right. And we can do that fast. Right. And so that's really what I'm missing, that impact on campaigns and organizations and launches and the things that are moving the world forward. I think we're a catalyst for that.
Yeah, I agree with that. We had some great charity galas upcoming that have been pushed off to a date that we really haven't set at this point. And I want to help those groups as much as it is cool to create the party and design and creative and all that. It's the impact too and the fundraising, which is important. So final question I'm going to leave you with, and this is going to be a tricky one, but where do you see yourself, not only personally, but the company, in a year or two or even 5 years? I'm not going to even say 10 years from now, because I mean, that seems like a lifetime, but I mean, even a year or two from now seems like a stretch, but where do you think this is going to go? Where do you see yourself?
I don't think too much about the future. I tell people a lot, but I'm 42 years old. And so in an ideal situation, I'm working. I'm busy for the next 20 years. Right. And so, I treat this like a business. My team is like a family. And so for me, it's, if you ask me right now, well, clearly this is what I'm doing and this is what I love to do, and we've been successful doing this. Tomorrow I might get a phone call from an ad firm or someone else, saying, and I mean, it wouldn't be the first time, but saying, hey, we want to buy you, or we want you to merge into us. And then, my life changes. And I think one of the things that I learned from this, COVID situation is, we basically had our calendars wiped out in a 72-hour period. And, literally. I was able to react relatively unemotionally because I don't find myself attached. I love what I do. I love the people that I work with, and I will go balls to the wall all the time for them every day. And I'll stay up nights and weekends and do whatever I have to do for their success. But I don't forecast my own. I just, I wake up every morning and I'm take my first breath and I'm happy to be where I am. And I think I'm grateful to the industry and the people around me who have helped me to get there. And so, I hope I'm giving back to an industry that has given so much to me. And I hope that I'm still, kind of able to fuck with people a little bit and
Well, you fucked with me a little bit. I've got all these ideas going on, and I'm definitely looking up this tables dropping from the ceiling after this. And after this interview's over, we're going to post your links to your website and your social so that everybody else can take a look. But, you know, I'm in the same boat too. I mean, this is my company. This is my design. It's what I love doing. But if I had to give it up tomorrow, in a heartbeat, I would totally do it. If it was for friends and like right now, we're in a world where health and safety has to be number one. I want my parents to be here in a year or two from now. I want, you know, family and friends around me. If that means sacrificing my company, in a heartbeat. I mean, it's lower on the scale for me. It's not, there's no substitute for that kind of stuff. So,
you know, I think it's just, you know, I try to think that I'm going to be better, right? So it's not, for me, it's not about necessarily about a sacrifice or not having a future vision. It's about just being better. And, you know, if I can broker a situation every day to be better than I was the day before, then cool. And right now, this company and the team of people around me and my extended team make me better every day. Is that a guarantee that'll be happening in 6 months from now? I don't know. A year from now, 2 years? I don't know. But right now, I know that I'm my best self in my current situation. And as long as I can say that every day for the rest of my life, that I'm trying to be my best self, then I'm in the right place. And the day that I wake up and say, I'm not my best self right now,
then you got to make a change.
That I need to make a pivot or a change.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there's always that saying that we do the best we can with the resources and the knowledge we have at this moment. And in a world right now, I mean, you can't even predict a week out. Like things are going to change. So you know what? It's going to be rewriting the book every day right now. We're in unprecedented times. You can talk about all these terms, but it's hard not to.
I'll give you a little tidbit, okay, for something for you and the people who are listening to put in your calendars. Ready?
Everybody listen up.
Sylvia Browne, who is a psychic who passed away a number of years ago. She wrote in one of her books, and I don't know if you've seen this online, but everyone can go look it up. Have you seen this yet?
I think I saw it. I think it was from a different book, though, that I read or saw something.
Sylvia Browne wrote that in 2020, there was going to be a pandemic that was going to affect people's breathing and stuff like that. And almost in an instant, it would be gone.
Interesting.
And then the next line suggested that it would happen again 10 years later. So, and I'm telling you this, I have now put a note in my calendar for 2029 to remind myself that I better be ready for the next outbreak.
Oh my goodness.
And that's my future thinking.
That's your future thinking. Okay, well, I'll put a note in my calendar to check on things. I don't know if I'm going to completely pivot my business in 2020. I don't even know if I'll be here. Let's hope. But we'll see where we're at that time. So, Aaron, I want to thank you for joining us today. This has been great. You've, like I said, messed with my mind, given me some great thinking to go off. And you know what? This has been great. I mean, in a time when everything's kind of doom and gloom, you know, there's glimmers of hope and there's inspiration and passion still going on in our industry. And I think it's important to have these conversations. I'm pretty pumped right now. I want to design. I want to create some parties. I want to create these moments for people. So, you know what? I'm going to go away like yourself and do some creative stuff today, later on. And, you know, remember why I'm doing what I do rather than thinking about, you know, insurance policies and pushing back and postponements and that kind of stuff. I'm going to stay inspired. So thank you again. Like I said, we're going to post your social media links to your website after this. And thank you. And I hope you and your family and company are safe and all the best over the next little bit.
Absolutely. And thank you for doing what you're doing. And anyone who's listening, feel free to reach out to me on any of my social media and I would be happy to chat further. And you know, I'm always around to talk. So I appreciate what you're doing and everyone stay safe and stay well and wash your hands and do all that important shit to get us back where we need to be as soon as possible.
Cool. Thanks again, Aaron. We appreciate it.
Got it.